So how is everyone? I hope you're all well. So look, there's a lot to go through today, so I'm going to crack on, get straight on with it. And look, before we go on and I start getting people saying,
look, law enforcement know what they're doing, you've got no right to challenge what they say, they are the police and you are not the police, you're an idiot.
Look, this is why I don't fully trust what law enforcement say. Law enforcement, first of all, failed to find Kylies' vehicle. And as many excuses as you want to give, Kylies' vehicle was 50 feet offshore and it was in 14 feet of water. Now, some people have said the water was higher when they originally went out. Look, it was a few days before, and yeah, I believe it was said that there was between 2 and 4 feet different. So under 20 feet worth of water, relatively clear. And when you picture where that car was found, it was pretty much in a straight line from the exit road. So it weren't like it was in some weird position. It was in the most obvious place. It was in the body of water, the closest to where Kylie's phone had last pinged, and was basically in a straight line. They apparently had divers in the water. You saw in the video I did yesterday, there was pictures of divers in the water. There was pictures of markers in the water, around 100 feet away from where the vehicle was eventually found in 35 minutes by Adventures with Purpose. So that's number one, because in my personal opinion, I believe that law enforcement, had that car have been there, they should have found it. And let's not forget the 19,000 approximate man hours that they billed the state for with regards to the search for Kylie Rodney, which they pretty much didn't do anything. They stuffed up the extraction of that vehicle. They failed to contain it. They flipped it underwater, causing more damage to the vehicle and expelling a lot of articles of Kylie's from that vehicle. They then failed to go back in, check and retrieve. And it took another YouTube channel to go back out on the water and find said articles. That person then contacted law enforcement and said,
look, there's some articles in the water here and they appear to be Kylie's as a laptop, etc, etc.
What did law enforcement do? Did they rush down? Did they go and grab them? No, they didn't. They took approximately 5 hours to go and get them, showing absolutely no urgency whatsoever. They also, during the search process, allowed unregistered people and people who were potentially witnesses to what could have happened to Kylie at that time to be involved and control a large proportion of that search. Okay, so there's a second reason. A third reason is, as the other articles were found, there are numerous videos that are showing the black tank tile stop, you know, the one that looks like an adult baby grow with the little clips under, you know, I don't envy girls wearing those. But look, one of those tops was found. It matched exactly what Kylie was wearing. And yet again, did law enforcement rush down to go and get this? No. They basically tried to say that it was rubbish. It was, you know, non-founded. I love that word. And they did eventually, it would appear, go and get it. But again, it took them hours to do so. And since then, it hasn't been reported. There's been nothing to report to say that they found anything significant. They've kept that away from the public. And look, again, before I get people saying
law enforcement don't have to tell you anything, you can't demand to know anything, this is an ongoing investigation.
Chill your bones. I know exactly. But there are certain things I can tell the public that don't affect the ongoing investigation. And that brings me to this point, and that is the tow truck situation again. And the tow truck situation is, I believe, absolutely pivotal in this. Now, you know, because I've contacted them and spoken to them and simply asked them to confirm that the vehicle is not connected to this, that it was in fact unconnected, and it in fact can be ruled out. And they failed to come back and say that. And look, they were coming back to me prior to that and answering other questions. Subsequently, we've reached out to them again with respect of Jagger being cleared, just to double check that that is in fact from them and not just the Sun reporting some random piece of information that they perhaps got from an unreliable source, because we know they do that sometimes. And they have come back and said, yes, that indeed, that information did come from this office and Jagger is indeed clear. So it would say that they are willing to communicate when there are things cleared from this case. So, in my opinion, that would mean, or be highly likely, that this vehicle could have indeed been Kylies. Because if it wasn't, and they've ruled it out, why haven't they came out and said, what is the benefit of them retaining, withholding that information? It doesn't affect the ongoing investigation. In fact, it would go to help the ongoing investigation because it would eradicate a massive amount of speculation surrounding this element of the case. But they won't do it. They haven't done it. And therefore, this vehicle, in my opinion, is still part of the puzzle. So if we take that into consideration, and based on what we know at this point, have law enforcement made a mistake in clearing Jagger? And the reason I ask this is because if you bear in mind that this vehicle was seen at around 11 a.m. on the Saturday, and they're saying that Jagger didn't get back into Truckee until around midday, perhaps Jagger was involved in the aftermath of whatever happened. We don't, at this stage, know what the time of death was from Kylie. We don't know anything. And because of the duration of time that Kylie spent in the water, it's unlikely that we will get that information. That is likely to be inconclusive. So how can they 100% rule Jagger out if they haven't yet ruled out the tow truck situation? Now, by all means, it could mean that they believe that it wasn't Jagger with that vehicle. They did say, it has been said that they knew who the male in that video footage from the tow truck driver was. And look, a lot of people have been pointing the fingers at AWP and saying that they said that was Jagger. No, AWP did not say it was Jagger. Nick gave a description of the person, and people on this platform, including myself, so, you know, my apologies for that, because I immediately thought, as I'm sure a lot of channels thought, fuck me, that's Jagger. That's Jagger. And to be fair, the description that was given wasn't really Jagger. We just heard what we wanted to hear and we ran with it. But look, that doesn't mean that Jagger is innocent of any wrongdoing, especially if that vehicle was indeed Kylies. So I ask anybody now to tell me that I'm wrong. If this vehicle has not been ruled out by law enforcement by now, and we don't know, bearing in mind that they've ruled out Jagger, so we know that came from their own mouth, they've done that, they've apparently got video footage of this vehicle, how can they clear him if they can't clear the vehicle? And if they have cleared the vehicle, why not just tell us? Why not just say the vehicle is not connected? Make that make sense. And look, SF Investigates. I thought I'd add this in here because it was a bit of a strange one. Because a name that keeps cropping up is Nate. This Nate name seems to be one that keeps appearing. There are pictures of Nate with Sammy, and Nate kind of does fit the description that the tow truck driver gave as well. But a lot of people do. Same as if you say blonde girl. A lot of the girls around there look like, in fact, all Kylie's friends kind of looked a bit like Kylie. So that's difficult. But when he was talking about AWP and having a go about them in connection with this tow truck, he actually called Nick Nate. So he must have Nate on his mind as well. And he's a private investigator. So, look, I'm not saying that the person's Nate, by the way. I'm just saying that, you know, there's some strange things in this. Like, I know the Nick's profile. I've found out who Nick is. I'm not going to say who he is. It's not up for me to do it. But when you find Nick and you go through his profile, he's got a chap called Nate on there. And if you go through that Nate's pictures, he fits the description of the tow truck driver Nick's. You couldn't make this shit up. So look, there's lots of things that can throw curveballs and make things seem weird and wonderful. Like the fact that we was told that there was another party in Sparks, Nevada, and Nick just happens to come from Sparks, Nevada. So, you know, you could dig yourself a hole. But I digress massively in that. But look, I purely want to know what is going on, like many of you do. But I just fear that law enforcement have just fucked this case so far up that this is now about closure as quickly as possible. And I'm going to leave you with this. Now, there are lots of you out there who still think that this was an accident, okay? Now, if this was an accident, you've got to kind of dig deep inside and ask yourself whether all of the whys and the ifs within this case, you are happy to ignore them, or you have an answer to them. You can answer any question that's thrown at you and confidently say, that's why that happened, this is why this happened, and that's how we came to this conclusion. And therefore, nobody is to blame. This was just a tragic accident. And if you're struggling with them whys and those ifs and those questions that you'd have to answer and be confident to, check out the video that I'm going to be uploading later today, because that's going to list them for you. And I'd be interested to hear your points of view in the comments. Take care, and I'll see you all later.